And welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. This is episode 215, the week after Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, Fredo and Dave.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so we were just before we started recording, we were telling all of our Thanksgiving stories, so we're not going to bore you with that. But more importantly, what we're celebrating is that we got new Star Wars, 2 days ago. And it came a day early. It was supposed to come on Tuesday, and then they decided to move it up to Monday, and it was awesome. So Skeleton Crew episodes 1 and 2 dropped, and so we're going to be talking about that tonight. We're not going to talk about the Saints. The Pelicans are playing right now, though, and I think they're doing okay. I mean, we got some good players back. We got Herb back, and, at least when I left to come here recording, we were doing okay.
Up a point in the second quarter on the Phoenix Suns.
Hey, well, that's a start. So, I guess, Dave, you stayed here. Fredo, you went to the cold Midwest in Chicago, and I went to the cold Midwest of Nebraska. So it's nice to be back and warm. Well, and it's actually going to be cold tomorrow, so we brought it with us. But anyway. So, cool. Well, like I said, we're going to be talking about Skeleton Crew tonight. So, brand new Star Wars stuff. Anything for the good of the order? I mean, we don't have much normal banter at the beginning here. I mean, I don't want to talk about the Saints because they're making me sad.
Just get Wilson and Taysom Hill. That's about all we can really say about the Saints. As for the rest, It is what it is.
Pass the hat around for a new knee. Dave, maybe we can edit this out in case I'm wrong, but we are now on Blue Sky. Is that correct?
Yes, we're there.
We'll be making some noise in the near future. Cool. Yeah, but like most, we joined the Exodus, I suppose. And it's funny because since I haven't deactivated anything on Twitter yet, but I haven't been using it, and it is like the most needy ex-girlfriend or boyfriend you've ever had in your life. I keep getting like 8 notifications a day for stuff that's not even related to me. It's just like, hey, somebody tweeted, you need to go read this thing. It's annoying as all heck. So I'm about ready to just delete the app off my phone anyway, but it's like I said, the neediest ex-girlfriend or boyfriend you've ever had.
Yeah, I deleted my app a few weeks back. I haven't I haven't nuked my account yet, and part of me wonders if I will, just because there's always the concern that somebody will just jump on the account or create a similar account and pretend that me or whatever. Not that that should bother most people, but that's that fear. So I've just parked it there. It's sitting, like a car on cinder block, or a car, like a car in a bad neighborhood waiting for somebody to come take the wheels off. So,
But
uh,
the good thing about that app, though, is that, those starter packs. So if you are a Star Wars fan, you're obviously a Star Wars fan if you're listening to the three of us yammer about it each week. You can find other Star Wars people rather quickly. So that's kind of cool. So
it's a good, I mean, mhm.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, that's a great way of kind of just instantly jumping on and and finding other fans of whatever. People can make any starter pack for anything, whether it's a sports team. If you like science, there's a lot of like scientists and a lot of researchers, whatnot, on Blue Sky that are just making starter packs. If you like into, like, say, astronomy or biology or whatever, and they're all connected to one another. That's It's a great little way of just going, I don't have to go and find who's who. There I go, and then it makes it easier. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say I signed up a year ago, and it was a ghost town, and like the exodus has commenced, and you can see it's a lot more active over there now. So that might be a selling point for some people. I really don't want to get involved with more social media sites, but I think like
Oh,
Twitter is just, the issue there is that it's not that, oh, now there are more conservative voices or whatever. It's that there are more racist um, hateful voices,
That's ugly.
Nazis, etc. Like they are literally courting Nazis over there. So, um, sorry, I can't tolerate that.
And even if because I know
I
that there's
hate
some people
Illinois
who
Nazis. Oh, sorry.
It,
yes, absolutely. Because yeah, you run into them, you just want to drive
that's
them off
one
into a
rule. That's
river.
my one rule. That's like in terms of tolerance. I'll tolerate just about anything and anybody, but Illinois Nazis, no way.
And the Dutch. Oh,
And
sorry.
no, but can I also add, one of the things that I really appreciated just when's the last time you saw an ad in there? I
Oh,
mean, oh
don't
my
wait,
God.
don't will it into existence because I'm afraid
Yeah, no,
what's
I know.
coming.
True, but I'm saying even if you have no problems with some of the content that's been bubbling up to the surface at the old site, just the fact that it functions, just the fact that you're not having to see the same ad for, flag branded jeans or, turn-based video games that are
Well,
just gonna steal your data. Like it's nice. You can actually see people having conversations.
the last thing I say before we move on to trivia, it's the community that once was, the NOLA Twitter, if you will, that
Mm.
really it became tougher and tougher to have those conversations and everything, and it seems like we're back to almost the good old days. So yeah, it's kind of nice. But anyway, that was a really long story to tell you that we are on Blue Sky. So if you are, you can find us and follow us, and we'll flutter or whatever the hell they call it. Um,
Skeet.
no, it's fluttering and something like that. It's not skeeting. There was a post about this, Fredo. No, yeah, it's check out it. Yeah, our friend Mandy had a post about it. So anyway, um, all right, let's
Oh,
do some
oh,
trivia. By the way, I saw one of these questions here, and I'm going to post. I'm not going to give it to either one of you. It's going to be to all of us to see if we can figure it out after I give Fredo his. Um, what, what's the English translation of Kunatuta Solo? What's the English translation of Kunatuta Solo?
I believe that is going somewhere solo.
It is, and I can you put the McClunky after that, Dave, in post? um, that was an okay Greedo on my part. That is correct. Okay, so
Well, the monkey comes after he's about to shoot him.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
To both of you though, and actually to all of us, because I looked at this and I'm like, holy crap. What does the Republic's abbreviation ATTE stand for? What does the Republic's abbreviation ATTE stand for? I know the AT is all terrain.
Hmm.
The all terrain troop.
Escort? Troop escort?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
No.
either I'm trying to think of what other E word would be there, or all-terrain troop escort sounds correct.
Well, we are wrong. We got the all terrain part. All terrain tactical enforcer.
It's like, somebody made a comment, if this was truly Star Wars, I'd add in, skeleton crew, would it be AT-AT 10?
No,
It wouldn't
it
be
that
AT
that,
AT.
that, that now it's canon that it's AT-AT. That's why we're gonna. Yeah, I think that is necessary. But anyway, so yeah, the prequels and their funny toys. All right, Dave, to you. Who tells Darth Vader that the Millennium Falcon must have been destroyed in the asteroid field?
Ooh.
Who tells Darth Vader that the Millennium Falcon must have been destroyed in the asteroid field?
Is that General Ossel?
It's Captain Nita.
Ah, dang it.
Apology accepted, Captain Nita.
Apology accepted, Captain Nita.
All right, to me, what senator confesses that he and his wife, quote, have always talked about adopting a baby girl? Man, the softball thrown right to me here. Um,
Big old meatball.
what senator confesses that he and his wife have, quote, have always talked of adopting a baby girl, that would be Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan. Yes, there we go.
Is there another Bell Organa?
Of Batu. Anyway,
Oh,
um, maybe. Okay, well, we got some news to talk about.
yeah. Let's start with the fun stuff. So, obviously, Skeleton Crew premiered this week. Last week, along with putting it on Disney Plus, some theaters are showing the first two episodes in a big screen. And when they had uh, the show premiere in California, all the stars came out, the cast, the crew. Dave Filoni was out there, and so they got to ask him about how stuff coming, and he basically confirmed that shooting for The Mandalorian and Grogu has wrapped. So the expectation is that movie will come out summer of 2026. He also says he has started work on the scripts for Ahsoka season two. So all of a sudden, let me see if I can find his line. Because yeah, basically he just states that he's excited for what's going to happen with what you might call the Mandalorian and Grogu. He's the sole writer of Ahsoka season two, so I would have. I mean, kind of lines up with what we've heard before that we wouldn't see that show's second season come out until after that movie gets done. So lining up.
Groovy.
Yeah, this is just good news in general. This is the functional arm of Star Wars.
Yeah, right.
So, no surprises here.
Yeah, right quick. Well, let's move from the fun. Actually, no, let's do one more fun stuff, and then we'll get back to the less fun stuff. Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, the one that premiered a couple of years ago, not the most recent one, is now on YouTube. So if for some reason you don't have Disney Plus, haven't seen it, just need something to be on YouTube, watch on YouTube with your kids, there you go. It's up there now. Should be fun. Let's move to the less fun stuff then. A couple of the former Acolyte cast members. It's funny. Skeleton Crew's coming out, and then a couple of the Acolyte cast members kind of come out as they're getting interviewed for other stuff. First one was Lee Jung Jae, who was getting interviewed by Vanity Fair for uh, upcoming season two of what's the name of his show? Um,
Squid Games.
Squid Game. Thank you. Yeah, drew a blank there. So they asked him about the reaction to the cancellation of the Acolyte. And he says, quote, my feelings were hurt, especially for Leslie Headland. Her feelings must have hurt a lot.
Point of order.
Uh,
Point of order. Point of order. Was it actually canceled?
Not renewed.
It
If
wasn't.
you wanna
What
if you wanna
wasn't
get into the
canceled either.
semantics of it, they're not making it.
They weren't promised a rose garden. I mean, it wasn't technically canceled. So anyway,
Yeah, again, that's the if you want to get pedantic with the semantic, we can get into those antics. The fact of the matter is you don't make that season one with the cliffhangers they have, and actually have an answer to your point. But let me just finish. Lee Jung Jae just finishes. I can only have faith that racism will end someday, even though it's going to be hard. And this is really more in reaction to the backlash that the show got, which he said he was shocked by. Just the visceral reaction that a lot of people within Star Wars had for the show. And it's interesting that whereas say Skeleton Crew has had overall positive reviews with very few number of like Rotten Tomatoes and the like. Remember, the Acolyte was getting review bombed by thousands of people on the first couple of episodes. So, but in answer to your question, Aaron, I'll mention that the other cast member who was discussing it was Manny Jacinto. I believe that's his name, Manny Jacinto, who was played, of course, the stranger, Camille, and he was doing an interview with Collider, and in answer to your question, Aaron, about whether they were promised anything, he says, "quote There were definitely a lot of different theories, like who he is, because we never actually know his true identity. Is his name actually Khmer? We definitely wanted to explore it. There was definitely going to be more of Darth Plagueis in the second, or if not the third seasons of the show, but I just can't say because we could come back. I don't want to spoil anything or give anybody false hope, but I would just say that there was a lot more to explore for sure. So the expectation was we're not making one season and we're done. We're This is going to keep rocking and rolling, and obviously not. There's some okay, maybe just maybe there might be a chance, but I don't think he's being realistic about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I no, I understand. It's like every time you set out on a project, you're looking at it being long term, and I'm sure I don't have any doubts that. I mean, we heard that Leslie Headland said she had ideas for a second season and stuff like that. But that my thing is, let's not call it being canceled when it because it wasn't like I don't know, I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's interesting to me that um, they they're speaking of it in those terms, right?
Yeah,
They're speaking of it as though it was canceled, and so like from my perspective, like maybe the actors are some of the last people to know, but um, they're acting like it's unlikely for it to come back. So um, yeah, that might be my biggest takeaway from this stuff is that they're saying, "Oh, I don't want people to give up hope, and I don't want to spoil anything in case it comes back." But at the same time, they're sort of hinting at there being long odds there, and that's no change. That's sort of what we knew already. Um, and as far as story elements, and who knows? I mean, who knows what we would have gotten and whether it would have been better. Um, the review bombing, now that really got my ears perked up when you talked about that because, mentioning that the new show hasn't been getting that, and I hate to break this to people, but the new show is in a lot of ways just as woke as the Acolyte was. And I think like if you want to say, well, like what's the difference? Why did that other show get bombed and this one didn't? You look at who the showrunner was, um, who she was authentic to herself, and who she
mm-hmm.
presents herself as publicly. Um, wasn't going to fly with certain segments, and that's just really terrible. But that's the reality. I think like that can account for some of it in and of itself. But then like also being open about some of those messages and being open about being inclusive and being open um, and welcoming and talking about that being uh, an integral part of the show and just being open. Again, like essentially being out of the closet here. Um, and I guess that's the difference for the bigots. And again, like it's nonsensical to me that they would draw the line in that way, or maybe they just got tired. They're like, well, we don't need to destroy this show because at least they're sort of shutting up. They're keeping their mouths shut. Um, I don't know what sort of mentality goes into all this, but like I can tell you, like those are the two differences that jumped out to
Yeah,
me. Um, and I mean, again, we all thought that was just the most absurd situation, unwarranted, ridiculous, uncalled for. Judge the show on its merits. Just do that. Anyway, off my soapbox. Sorry.
no, it's all good. I 100% agree. Yeah,
No, absolutely, absolutely. And, it's one of those things where you just kind of recognize that a lot of times it's a lot. It's nothing to do with the show. Again, you can have your disagreements, your criticisms, your opinion about quality of Skeleton Crew or the Acolyte or anything else, and just have it be based on what's on the screen in front of you, and that's fine. But I think a lot of times you recognize that when there's a concerted campaign like the Acolyte, it's more than just that. It's more than just okay, what's on the screen, particularly when it's uh the show's barely old enough or barely premiere and it's already getting what it got. It's unfortunate because it kind of if there's one big thing that I think comes through from the interviews that Lee Jung Jae, Manny Jacinto, Two Asian Men, Madeline Stenberg, uh, forget the name of the actress who played her mother. They were both black women. It's like this was a show made by black minority people of color, LGBTQ people, and they feel like Disney basically hung them out to dry. Just kind of just said, "Oh, if the show had been great, they would have supported us more." But the show, didn't get the welcome that it got, and so Disney just kind of backed off. And whether you like the show or didn't, that I think that's
But
immaterial
you know
to
what's
that point of the discussion. You know, if you're Disney, protect your people. Make
but you
sure
know
that
what's
people getting
interesting
the support
though?
that they need.
If I see a Disney Plus ad online, it is the Acolyte that is like their poster. That's the
Hmm.
interesting part about this is that so I mean yeah yeah I don't know
Hmm.
it is almost like they're trying to is it can we is it okay now can we so it is kind of weird yeah I mean I would not
Yeah.
obviously I would not be opposed to a second season at all so
And look, historically, TV shows were given a number of seasons. Like you would write for more episodes than Disney usually gives, as well as there would be an expectation that unless you're just a gigantic bomb that nobody liked, you would give it the time to kind of work your kinks out, so to speak.
I mean,
That's
honestly,
good. I mean,
we don't know what was in the contract that Leslie Headland signed. It was like, how
true,
many,
true.
were you
What I'm
given a
saying though
pilot
is,
and how
what I'm
many
saying is the
episodes? It's like,
hit.
so
What I'm trying to say though is like historically, like you take a show like Seinfeld. And I always remember that that's the best example I give to anybody. Season one of Seinfeld was not what everybody remembers Seinfeld being back in the 90s. It's not the show about nothing that everybody that became a cultural touchstone. There's a lot of shows that were like that, where that first season was not the gangbusters that really defined the show, but the creators were given the opportunity to figure out what the show was while they're making it. And
And
it's and that didn't happen in this case, and it may not have happened. Look, Disney might have just simply gone, "You're too expensive. We want to put stuff back into movie theaters. Thank you, but no, and we haven't committed to anything beyond what we've given you, and we're walking away from it, and that's fine." It's surprising because that was one of the big differences with TV is you did get your chance to write, sort yourself out, so to speak.
that's where we're at now, though. Like we're in the culture now of streaming, and these
Mhm.
shows they don't get a chance to sort of figure it out. They get a huge budget on the front end, which is nice, which they never got previously. But then they don't get a chance to sort of find their footing. They're given a long rope to hang themselves with, basically.
Mhm.
And so like you said, like, there's so many examples. Star Trek: The Next Generation was one. Like there's a lot of shows that just were sort of like they were real close to getting canceled, and then they they figured it out. They found the magic formula, and then they took off and they got popular. This show didn't get that chance, and I don't think it. Again, to defend Disney, um, this is just sort of the reality of the streaming business nowadays. There's so many good shows that get canceled after a year or two now, and you're like, really? I was just getting invested in that thing, and now it's gone. Like, what? What are we doing here? Um, but
Netflix is the best example of that. And the funny thing is, it's become almost like a meme. People go like, "Oh, I just got into the show on Netflix, and now it's gone. Never mind. Thanks,
well
thanks,
it's
thanks for
also
that."
it's also my last comment on this is that I find it funny that we talk about it as being we always have about it being TV, Star Wars TV,
Mhm.
Netflix, Disney Plus, all that. It's not TV. It's not that it's not the same. Um, so if we have the expectations of, like I said, of a what we grew up in, the 70s, 80s, and 90s of watching TV. It's a different way of consuming. It was more communal. It was like, I mean, because you would sit down and we would watch MASH with, my whole family. I remember Saturday nights was The Love Boat and then Dynasty, and I fell asleep. It was like, or no, Fantasy Island came on after The Love Boat. But, it was, like I said, it was a communal thing. Now it's like, I mean, you watch a little bit and then you throw your iPad off to the side and you'll go do something else, or so I think I think we need to stop looking at, and this is a totally new topic, but I think we just need to stop looking at it as TV. It's mini movies. I mean, is what those streaming services are. So anyway, I digress. Get off my
No,
lawn.
no, okay. Everybody off the soapbox now. Now, I'll mention right quick because you added this, and it's Andy Serkis is coming to Fan Expo in New Orleans. Let me make sure I confirm the dates, just because
That was announced
I know that
today. Yeah.
yeah, it was announced today. But so the good news is they're still adding stuff. It's so yeah, Fan Expo New Orleans. Andy Serkis is appearing Saturday and Sunday, which I believe is January 11th and 12th. So not soon after the 2024 becomes 2025. And yeah, it's gonna have guest appearance. You can get him autograph. You can take a photo. Yeah,
Let's all get in our jammies and run around yelling "one way out." They do that at the celebration now. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Actually, if he's there, no way out.
So
One
Well,
way
here's
out.
the
one
One
way
way
out.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
one way. Well, here's what's interesting. I mean, he comes to fame thanks to Gollum and Caesar. Gollum with Lord of the Rings, Caesar from Planet of the Apes. This famous motion actor. But I'd wager to that he's best famous in real life now, thanks to roles like Kino Loy in and or
Claw.
yeah, Claw in Black Panther. It's like he's as recognizable now as anybody, which is funny because at the start nobody knew who he was
Yeah.
because he was CGI super actor.
Well, Snoke was pretty cool too.
So it was
I
pretty
give him that
good.
one.
Yeah. I don't want to go
Uh,
buy a Snoke figure to have him sign though. So um,
I so
Yeah,
like question for you guys: are you gonna go? It sounds like I'm going now because my mom um is like that's one of her gifts for our kids potentially.
I
So,
was thinking about going a day. I'm actually looking at maybe trooping with the 501st on that if I can do it just on that Sunday.
hmm.
So I might be doing a little bit there,
well,
but
there is a Kino Lloyd 1/6 scale bust on Amazon for $130, or Gentle Giant for $130. If you want to get that to get him to sign that, Aaron,
nah.
as opposed to get him to sign a Snoke action figure. Actually, no, let me see. There is a black scale series Kino Lloyd action figure. Oh, it's supposed to be coming. Anyway, uh, that's, yeah, I think it'd be a great idea to just go one of those days, just enjoy it and just, you know, if nothing else, you get to hang out with your fellow nerds and geeks, and you know, it's a fun experience. I'm still looking at that Back to the Future event Friday night. That should be fun. So anyway, but I like the fact that they're staggering stuff. There's the Fridays or Saturdays or Sundays, so incentivizing you to spend all weekend stuck in the convention center. Last bit of news before I get to Skeleton Crew, and did we mention this last episode, Aaron?
No, we haven't.
That
We haven't mentioned this. We forgot about ourselves.
Yeah, so in breaking news, happy belated birthday to the Who Dat Jedi podcast. We are now 5 years old. We're in kindergarten.
Yep.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
We can read.
This whole idea was hatched at Zony Mash over a couple beers between me and Dave, and then we called Fredo, and off we go. So yeah,
And 5 years later, off and on for, yeah, 5 years since the first premiere episode of The Mandalorian, which,
yeah,
it sounds crazy when you think about it, those terms, because we don't think about, okay, how long time has passed. I mean, 5 years is 5 years. And it's been a crazy 5 years, let's be honest, but also just simply
the next
how
five
much
years
Star
don't look much better.
well, no, I wasn't even going there, but I'm just saying, how much Star Wars we've got. It's like
Yeah,
if you're gonna if launch a Star Wars podcast, 2019 was probably anywhere in that period after the sequels kind of came out, but really 2019 was the right moment because you got the Mandalorian, you got Rise of Skywalker, Clone Wars came back, so you were getting stuff, you're getting content. I can't imagine trying to do this, in the mid or 2000s, like 2007, 2008. There's nothing. We
yeah,
got nothing.
I think there were a couple dozen, or right around that number of podcasts that launched right around that same time. So we have the same birthday as like 20 others. And yeah, because of course it was a time of great excitement and joy in the Star Wars community, and there was all this new stuff coming out, and people were fired up, man. Um, and again, like the timing on our end just sort of worked out.
Yeah,
So
it's been fun. It's been fun.
Mhm. Continues to be fun. So it's like can't really be mad if this felt like a job. I'd be like, I don't know if I want to. No, this is fun time. So and that's the other thing. It's like tells you it's fun that you start seeing something or like discussing something with somebody goes, that'd be a great topic idea.
Actually,
So you know it's mhm.
I have some topic ideas I have to share with you after we get done
I have
recording.
one.
But
I had one. So yes,
all right, so well, happy birthday to us! Happy birthday to us! Happy birthday, dear Who Dat Jedi podcast! Happy birthday to us! Um,
McClunky.
here's to many more. So cool. All right, well, let's talk Skeleton Crew. Um, so let me do this. What I'm going to do, like I said, we're not going to give a whole play-by-play. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the synopsis from StarWars.com from the episode guides for episode 1 and episode 2 of Skeleton Crew, and then we'll go through our little talking points. Sound good? Is that cool? So episode 1 is called "This Could Be a Real Adventure." It says the life of a pirate couldn't be any further life on at Aden, and that's made crystal clear when a cold open full of explosives and blaster fire shifts from the start of a mutiny to a tranquil world where children and their parents are just waking up to the start their completely average normal days. Wim and Neil are two best friends, and their healthy imaginations, whether they're playing with action figures or pretending to duel with lightsabers. Who among us hasn't ignited a pretend lightsaber and provided the sound effects one time or another? Relatable. On the flip side, we have Fern and KB, two best friends who race hover bikes, and they're calling claimsies on Wim's discovery of a mysterious buried treasure, a ship known as the Onyx Cinder. The foursome is in for a surprise. This is not really written well. At first, mistaking the circular door as buried Jedi temple, it's Wim who hits the button and sends them hurtling towards the sky and the starship, despite Fern's orders to not touch anything. For seemingly the first time in their lives, they begin to understand how vast the galaxy truly is, but the adventure is just beginning. So, episode 2 is way, way out past the barrier. Fern's penchant for storytelling isn't just for scaring boys anymore. After terrifying Wim and Neil with her tall tales, Fern's storytelling prowess saves their skins when SM-33 lumbers into view. The ship's droid is loyal to the last, still serving a long gone captain, but Fern doesn't even flinch. Who's the captain now? She is, and honestly, we'd follow her on any adventure too. While Wim's dad, Wendell, is lost in the forest trying desperately to find help after watching his son carried away on a starship, the kids speed to Starport Borgo, where it becomes painfully clear that they're in way over their heads. They soon learn something surprising. No one, not even a well-meaning Thielen, so that's okay. There we go. We got anyway, a well-meaning Thielen, believes that they're from At Aden, the lost planet of eternal treasure, as she perplexingly calls it. And Wim's shiny lunch money makes him and his friend Neil an easy target for treasure-hungry rogues. Unfortunately, soon all 4 kids are tossed into the brig along with Snowball, the tiny creature that makes his home inside SM-33 circuits. Little mouse for everybody. For a moment, it seems all hope is lost. They're out of options and out of luck. And then the mysterious Jode sorry, the mysterious Jode steps out of the shadows. He's dressed as a pauper, feet wrapped in rags, but manages to levitate the key that will unlock their cell doors and allow them to make their escape. Can you keep a secret? He asks. So those are the little synopsis. So I have one question for you guys, and I just want 1 to 2 words. Your gut reaction to Skeleton Crew episodes 1 and 2. I'll say mine first.
All right.
I'm hooked.
Loved it.
Space Goonies.
That's there we go. All right. So sounds like we're all kind of in. So I guess let's what I want to do also, let's start with talking about the characters, because that's the thing where this it hit me that it seemed like that's that's what got me hooked on this, are these four kids. Um, and we'll talk about more in depth on some stuff, but let's just take each one of these one by one. Let's talk about Wim. What'd you think, Dave? Your reactions tell people what Wim is like and what you thought of him as a character.
Sure. Wim is resourceful. He's a true adventurer. He's got that adventurous spirit. He's curious. Um,
A little whiny.
he has that wanderlust,
Yeah,
and that sort of ties in with some of that whininess. He's sort of like our little miniature Luke Skywalker.
that's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like that's him. And what's funny is like I grew attached to this kid right away because he reminds me so much of one of my daughter's friends. And so I'm like, oh yeah, all right, I love this kid. He's great. And yeah, he's the lead of the ensemble. It may not be the leader that's calling the shots exactly, but he's sort of the reason that they're where they are. Like they made a point in that write up that you mentioned, or they said that he's the one that hit the button, launched him off into space, and that's kind of his role.
So, Fredo, let me toss you. How about Neil?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think Neo is kind of like the underground superstar right now. Everybody's falling in love with Neo because he's that best friend. He's the guy who's along for the ride. In some ways, like, when you compare this to the Goonies, like if Wim is Mikey, then Neil is like Mouth or Data, or actually more, maybe more Data, but that kind of character. Like that's the best friend who, even though his situation is nice and comfortable, I mean, we get to see his parents, his siblings, his baby brother, and he's chilling in his bubble bath. I mean, he don't have to go out in the night to go exploring, but his best friend comes along, wants to go exploring. Sure, let's go. He's your ride or die. So I think he's just the right tone of innocent and excitable and and just a good friend, and he's exactly what every kid wants to have alongside them.
The juxtaposition of those two characters as well.
Hmm.
Wim is his, because you mentioned Neil's family. Wim's
Hmm.
family, his mother is gone. Dad isn't there a lot. He's working a lot, and so Wim is a latchkey kid. It's
Hmm.
like he's taking care of himself, and he's not very disciplined. Neil is responsible. Gets home and he gets hugs from both of his parents. And then he sits and watches TV with his siblings. Yeah, and takes his bath when he's told. We'll talk about the TV that they're watching a little bit later. Um, so they are, and we've all been in that friend, you know,
Hmm.
dichotomy, if you will, that,
Hmm.
maybe you were the more responsible to the one who was a little bit more irresponsible, or maybe you had a friend who liked coming to your house because it felt like a family, or you liked going to a friend's house because it felt like a family. So that's kind of interesting about those two. Um,
Yeah, with Wim, the character I kept going back to thinking of the most was Elliot from ET. That's what just stuck in my head. Similarly, he's got Elliot has siblings, but he's very much somebody on his own, trying to navigate the new dynamics of his situation. And that's when he decides to go out into the woods. He's much more willing to be driven by his wanderlust, by his imagination, to seek out adventure, and that's when he gets into trouble.
I also want to say that Neil is really kind
Yes.
Mhm.
and empathetic, and I feel like that's really sort of coming through quickly.
Yeah, and he's I think he's the one I don't want to get in trouble type of a kid.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
even says that don't want to get in trouble. Um, but I think we're going to that it's going to be fun watching his character arc through this show because I think you're going to hopefully you're going to see him become a little bit more of what the other kids bring. So let's those are the two boys. Now they're paired up with two girls. Let's talk about Fern. Um, I'll start on this one. Fern, if you said Wim is the little Luke, Fern is a little bit of the little Leia. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, she's a little bit more world wise, I suppose, a little bit more street smarts, I suppose. But she's actually it's kind of a Luke and Leia mix. That's kind of weird to say, or I mean a Han and Leia mix, because she's kind of tough. Um,
Hmm.
she's manipulative. She's
The
sneaky.
racer.
She knows how to she worked over a droid. It's like you didn't see me. But it seems like her home life is similar to Wim's. But mom is there, but it's a different type of it's there's conflict between her and her mom, and like just like Wim and his dad. Um, but I like Fern. I like that she's like I said, she's got that kind of swagger to her as a little kid, and she's kind of gutsy. Either one of you guys want to chime in on Fern?
Yeah, very much. She is in many ways the Leia, like you kind of pointed out. She takes charge. She's initiative. She's the one, like she overhears Wim and Neil talk about it, and you know she's driven. There's a reason why she's going there. She's a racer. She likes to race her hover bike, and they need a new part, a power convert for their bike. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to race the guy that they want to beat. So, hey, she's thinking this might be something where I could get what I need. So she's willing to tell the boys and figure that out, what they found. So she's very resourceful and creative. It is interesting that her dynamic is that her mom is like the undersecretary on that Adam. So she's somebody who's coming from a position of authority, and in many ways she's rebelling against that authority. Much the same as Win, we don't know what the other dynamics within her family are. We just know that she's probably. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's that she's taller than the other boys, but she seems like she's the oldest of the group. So it struck me like she's more likely the likeliest to be the one to take charge, as she does.
Yeah.
She's the one that's like, okay, this is what's going on. This is what we're gonna do, so to speak. So yeah.
Also, again, like as Aaron mentioned, sort of the most street smart one. So, like, it just seems like a natural that she would sort of run roughshod over the others in that way. And in that way, I kind of thought Han Solo more than I did Leia, but um, I mean, the characteristics are very similar with the willful, intelligent, strong. Um, yeah, you name it. So,
The one we really don't get a whole lot. I mean, it's tough. I still haven't wrapped my brain around is KB. She seems pragmatic. Seems smart. Um, but like I said, that's the one character in these two episodes that didn't really get moving up an arc. I don't know. What do you guys think? Am I wrong on
Mhm.
that?
No, no. And I wonder if that's by design, just simply because, or maybe they recognize that they couldn't give each one of the kids equal timing in order to get, because episode one, I mean, and we'll get into it at some point, I imagine, is the one that spent the most on that and you're waiting for kind of the shoe to drop and the story to finally get started. So we get a little bit with KB. We know that she's intelligent. We know that she's somebody who is good with technology. We know that she's very good friends with Fern, but we still have more to find out about her. And I wonder if maybe that was the one sacrifice they had to make within the principal cast of the four kids. Was saying, okay, we're gonna have to give the bulk of the attention to Wim, Fern. a little bit more to Neil, and then KB will bring up in latter episodes as they get up and aboard the Onyx Cinder and try to figure out how to make it work. So we'll see.
She's defined in a lot of ways through her relationship with Fern, because she lets Fern just sort of run over her. And you see that you mentioned her being pragmatic, and that's part of that. That she doesn't want to make waves, she doesn't want to go against the flow. So she's very content to defer to her friend.
Yeah, she
Um,
actually even says,
so
"I'm sorry, she made me do that." Yeah.
Right. And that's where that one particular little scene is sort of where you see most of her personality sort of bubble out. Because she seems a little more playful in that moment, and she's laughing a little bit at the fact that they put one over on those
Well, and
boys.
the one that were the one that got me was when SM-33 was teaching him how to fly the thing. It's like, well, you do this and you do that. And it makes sense. And she's like, yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
That's I was like, okay, she's like I said, she's got the brain. She's the brains of this group. So
Mhm. And it makes me wonder how they because that's one of the interesting aspects of the show going forward. We are going to see these kids grow, their characters grow. We're going to get to know more about them, how they deal with the dynamics. Because that's one of the fun things of that second episode. It's all of a sudden they're trying to sort out how they're going to do what they're going to do,
well, that's the thing. They are
and then
not a friend group. They are not a friend.
they
These
are
aren't
not.
four friends. These are two friends here and two friends here. And this whole thing is they're going to have to figure out, and each one of them has a strength that they're going to have to figure out how to
Mhm,
utilize as a group. Sorry to step
mhm.
on you there, but
No, 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 you're right, and I think that's part of what makes it fun is that they're going to have to the fun's going to be in seeing them interact with stuff that they're not accustomed to. Because it's
that's
not like they didn't just go from Adam to say something like Naboo or even, I'm trying to like some of the nicer worlds we've seen in the Star Wars galaxy. They got dropped on the
well,
deepest of the deep end here.
and at the very we got to get to the last character I want to talk about, but at the most fundamental basis, this is so relatable to all of us and everybody because this is like a group project in a class, and you've been and the teacher has paired has grouped you together, and and like I said, there's conflict here, and so we can all relate to this of like okay, we got to figure out how to work together and get a good grade on this project and whatever, and one person's going to be the responsible, one person's going to be jacking around and getting the teacher mad at us, and so that's what I think is kind of the genius of this, just from the fundamental. I think maybe that's why people are, like I said, just digging it right away because we can all relate to this. How about SM-33? The pun there. The funny thing was that he talks like a pirate, and if for those of Captain Hook's sidekick was Smee, so that was that's yeah. I didn't know if I was going to like this droid when I saw the kind of the previews and the trailers and stuff like that. I'm hooked on this droid now too. I dig him. When he got shot with an ion blaster, I was like, oh. I mean, it was kind of a K2SO type of deal. I dig this droid. I don't know. How do you guys
Yeah.
think of it? Is it too piratey?
I love that little detail with the rodent living in his eye socket. Um,
Yeah.
God, it really brings him to life in a lot of ways. Just like having this organic thing just crawling around his face.
And he's got a
Um,
peg leg. Yeah.
yeah. And the way that he lurches around, the physical acting there is really on point. I didn't realize it was Nick Frost, from,
Out
the
of the Dead,
Cornetto.
Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, the Cornetto trilogy. I didn't realize it was him at
And
first,
it's a
but it,
practical puppet too.
yeah. Um, and I don't know if I could say that I tell the difference, but it looks real, right? It looks tangible, it looks physical. Um, I think like the other thing too is like his role here is really going to be, well, you mentioned that there's a loyalty factor there. Um, he he's the kind of he's the well, I mean, he's the guidepost, right? He's going to tell them like here's what you need to know about the culture, and here's what you need to know about the protocol in particular of these situations and these scenarios that you're going to find yourself in. And so, like, for him, he's the sort of like sounding board, and he's the, in a lot of ways, the older sage character, like, the Obi-Wan, if you will, who's going to guide them through all of this.
Yeah, it's okay. First of all, love the design, love the look, love Nick Frost's voice. It just hit again. This stuff show about pirates, and you needed. I mean, this is your first signpost that you are in a pirate show. Because I don't know if you guys ever saw Treasure Planet, which was Disney's adaptation of Treasure Island, and he could have been blocked out of that. And it fits right in. And to that point, I don't know about him being a physical element, a physical prop. I think the kids actors needed that. I don't think you can ask them to give you the kind of performances this show's going to ask them to, and say ask
That's a
against
good
us
point.
a tennis ball and a stick.
Yeah.
Like they need to see that even because I'm pretty sure the little rodent in there that's not a physical uh, effect. That's probably a digital effect added on. So you're already asking a lot of them. So I love we'll get onto this later. A lot of the costumes, a lot of the designs, they're all real sets and costumes and props and everything. And again, this is all to make the performers who are very young feel as comfortable in giving their performances against other things that they can, react to. I think for SM33 though, what I enjoy the most is that there was that moment when he just comes in and he's defending his captain, from the other pirates, and I just put a big old grin on my face. I'm like, this is exactly what he should be doing. This is exactly what he should be engaging in. Of course, he doesn't know that the kids are not pirates. He just goes, well, I got to bring you to the safe port and let you do what you got to do, Captain, not recognizing that they're not who he thinks they are. So again, I enjoyed everything about the character, and I'm sure we're going to see more of him. I don't think this is the last.
So let's talk aesthetics here. It's been one of my big things. Is like I want it to feel like Star Wars. So, what'd you think? How did it look? How did it feel? Does it feel like Star Wars? How did it sound? And I will start with this. I had my misgivings about looking like the neighborhood that the Brady Bunch, grew up in. But the story elements that are making it like, okay, there's something up, and we'll talk about this later. There's something up with the planet. This is not your typical Star Wars planet, and they did a good job of setting that up in the story. So something makes you go, something's weird, and we didn't hang on there very long. It was what I was hoping for. We were off into space, and once they get through the barrier, it was all Star Wars. I thought it looked great. So I didn't think the effects looked cheap, except for the obviously the marionette puppet that drove him from one place to another. The little white furry dude. Is that the one from the Ewok movie?
Yeah, he was from the
Mhm.
Ewok.
I mean, he looked like he was a puppet. It was obvious. Um, so, but anyway, no. Otherwise, it like I said, it all looked and felt and sounded like Star Wars. I thought the score was good. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Did anything not pass the smell test?
I'm glad you made the point that you did, because I was going to make the same point as a selling point in case you did still have misgivings and you did still feel weird, because like there's this really sort of bizarro Earth thing going on with those suburbs and all this, this it's like Earth but not quite. It's like, I don't know if you saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3,
Mm-hmm.
um, where they like remade Earth with like these animal people. Um, it's kind of like that. You're like echoes of a sort of strangeness that makes you feel uncomfortable, but also is like a little too familiar. But I think that's really the sort of the point. And like you said, there's this barrier. There's clearly this thing that exists in its own ecosystem is cut off from the rest of the galaxy. So we as an audience can sort of compartmentalize it as well. It's like, oh, this is just a weird planet.
Yeah,
And thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what I was like. All right, I still when we started on the episode, I was like, I don't like the look of this. I don't like. Then they started talking, dropping some things. It's kind of like, oh, okay, that's weird. Then when they were like, the big thing was when they're like, yeah, really, you're from the mythical planet of treasure. It's like, oh, all right, cool.
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to eat crow at the podcast recording. I'm fine. It's like, okay, they explained it. We're good. So
Well, and I think that's, I mean, yeah, because obviously you start with the design of it, and you're going, okay, you're in Star Wars suburbia, you're in the suburbs of 1980s, Steven Spielberg suburbs of 1980s, but in Star Wars. But they do a good job. I mean, throughout that first episode, I mean, just the fact that when Fern's mom Farah is talking to the kids about what they want to do when they grow up, and like the biggest thing all the kids want to do is be an analyst. You're like, okay, that's weird. You live in the Star Wars galaxy, and all you want to do is sit behind a computer and process data. And then they're fighting for that kind of position. Okay, that's odd. And then the fact that Wim can leave um, the garage door open and nobody comes in. I didn't see anybody lock anything. Uh, it just there's more and more subtle hints throughout the story, throughout the first episode. It lets you know that this is not quite right, and then yeah, by episode two, once you break past the barrier, the kids are all staring at the wall of stars in the black sky and the black night ahead of them, and you're like, okay, they may not, they may have been
well,
somewhere hidden.
when they said, "What are those?" That was when I went,
Right.
"Oh, this is something's really weird here. They don't see
Hmm.
stars." Um,
Hmm.
so
Which you did, which to be honest, I didn't even think for me to look back. I had to go back episode one, and you're right. You look at the sky at night, you don't see
so
stars.
then I want to we don't hear what happened to Wynn's mom. We know Wynn's mom is not in the picture. Wynn knows about Jedi, knows about and has the toys and knows
Mm.
about the adventure. So it makes you wonder: is there was she from the beyond that taught him about that stuff, and maybe he shared it with Neil, but you know what I mean? There's just because he has the storybooks and he kind of is, but it seems like everybody else is unaware of what is going on elsewhere.
Did you notice that the storybooks that Wim is reading, they're all High Republic Jedi. That's the other thing. It's like it didn't hit me till the second episode when he pulls out that first credit, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is highly valuable. And you're like, it makes me wonder, when they because we hear the word Republic.
Mm,
Is this the new? No, we make the presumption, perhaps erroneously, that because this is set in the time of the New Republic, post Empire, that's the Republic we're talking about. Do they think that they're still in the Old Republic?
yeah.
The credit, and that's the thing. The credits, they said, where did you get Old Republic credits in mint
Right.
condition? So yeah,
Hmm.
that's weird. So we're kind of now in that's the next talking point here of what's up
Hmm.
with their planet. So we're kind of talking about that. But anything else you guys want to talk about the aesthetics?
Oh,
how about, I mean, the pirate
oh,
spaceport was, like I said, these all kind of blend together. I thought the pirate spaceport. Here's my one thing. I will say this is, if it's not even a criticism, but what I'm noticing is there's a lot of stuff being developed for Star Wars that looks a lot like Batuu. It looks a lot like Galaxy's Edge, and I'm thinking that
mhm.
is by design so that we can, you know, fit things in the parks. You got to sell the toys, merchandise. So that is my one thing. Was like I'm starting to see a lot of things, like I said, that just look like you could just slide into Galaxy's Edge and get away with it.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder if that's more the idea of making it feel even more immersive without having to do anything to Batu. Because if you show up in a place that feels like Star Wars, even because you've seen it on your computer screen or your TV screen, big screen, and it don't feel the same because it feels similar in nature
But I
to
mean, but to
what you've
be fair,
seen.
we were in Space Tortuga, we were in Star Wars Tortuga. I mean,
Hmm. Yeah,
that's what this spaceport was. It was just full of pirates and debauchery and everything. And like I said, it seemed to fit. It seemed to fit.
the port that we get to forget the name of the port. I mean, it connect. Tell me, it doesn't connect very much with the cantina in at Mos Eisley Spaceport. This
Oh well,
feels like
yeah.
yeah, like it's like it feels alien and quirky, and there's all these characters, all who look like you have Jaleel White, you have Urkel in there
Okay.
with a
That,
with a thing on his head, and it's like, yep, that's the scene.
that's okay. So that's an interesting thing. We'll talk.
Mhm,
I do want to put a pin in
mhm,
that the Urkel thing. But here's the thing that I do. It bothers me is that it'll be interesting to see how people react to, like I said, the Star Wars Tortuga. You said it's like the cantina, and it is. It's like the cantina. So why is everybody so thrilled about this? But Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams gets raked over the coals because it's just a rehash of the cantina. You know what I mean? And so we don't have to
mhm.
debate that, but that's the thing that drives me nuts about Star Wars fans sometimes. It's like, okay, so what makes this so much better than that? Because at that yes, they're kind of serving the same purpose. Um, yeah, so I do want to. I'm going to throw it to Dave though. But remind me about Urkel. Go ahead, Dave.
There's a lot here I like. Our alarm already went off, but I could probably talk a lot longer about this. I like the idea that the of an inverted treasure hunt, essentially, where like they come from the place where the treasure is.
And
they're
nobody knows how to get there. Yeah.
they're the key to the treasure. And so suddenly now they become targets. That's really, really clever. And it sort of imperils them right off the bat, which I think is like an important piece of this whole
Well, it's Treasure
um,
Island, right?
or Goonies,
Muppet Treasure
or
Island. Yeah. I mean,
I mean, like, there's like dozens of stories centered around kids and kids getting into an adventure, right? And they fall into a lot of the similar tropes. I think like one of the things that they do really well here is they introduce those main characters really well, and they introduce sort of like what their strengths are, what their interests are, what their talents are, because you know that stuff's going to come into play later. Um, and it's a suspension of disbelief thing where you put them in a really dangerous situation where you're like, oh, I'm on the edge of my seat. How are the kids going to get out of this one? And it's like, well, these are extraordinary people with extraordinary talents. And the talent will allow them to get out of it. And I think like it's a really clever story device in this type of story, um, because of that factor, but also because it also puts you in a position of telling a morality tale to the younger set. It's like essentially everyone can contribute. Everyone is special. Everyone has something positive about them. And I think like that's such an important story to tell. Like everyone matters, for lack of a better phrase. And so like they're doing that. They're nailing that, right? Um, they're still showing us that these are kids. Um, in terms of their interactions, we talked a little bit about some of that. Their interactions with their parents and how some of those relationships are strained. And I think if you have at that age a bit of an emotional distance from your parents already, it can just sort of make it that much likelier that they'll fall into a physical distance, which we saw, which happened. And the reason you do that is that you put them front and center, the kids. Their families aren't going to come in there and rescue them. They're on their own. That ratchets up the tension and the peril. Um, but then it also just allows them to sort of breathe and be the center of the story the way that they need to be. Um, we've got the cutoff from the parents with the hyperspace incident. Boom, done, check. But then you're also creating peril with pirates
Hmm.
And the fact that they have this money and they have the key to get more of the money and the pirates are in there, check. So like they're doing it, and the first two episodes were essentially perfect in laying all this groundwork for this story going forward. Those are the big picture things for me. Just like from watching this, I'm like, it's like you'll hear me compare it to Goonies forever and ever and ever, and it's because it's the obvious comparison point,
Well, I mean,
right?
well, okay.
Um,
So I'm the guy. Everybody, come at
yeah,
me. I have not seen Goonies, but what I have seen is I have seen Treasure Island. I've seen Muppet Treasure Island. That's what I'm comparing this to. It's so
yeah,
what I want to talk about is Jude Law here for a second. His role. I mean, Britt and I were talking about this today. I was thinking about this. It's like he's 100% Long John Silver in, especially in
Mhm.
Muppet Treasure Island. Jim Hawkins has the map that he needs to find his treasure, and he's going to pretend like he's his good buddy and he's out there to help him. And there's going to be, and so we're going to have those twists and turns with that character relationship. But I listened to a Star Wars podcast today that will remain unnameless. They talked for, I'm not kidding, and actually they talked for probably 10 minutes of that podcast as to whether or not Jude Law's character was using the Force to get the key. And was he maybe faking it? Was he using a magnet? They actually Googled what metal is our keys can be attracted by a magnet. I am not kidding you. And first of all, Jude Law,
Magnets, how do they work?
right? Jude Law, in an article I read, I saved, I'll share it with you guys, but I saved it the other day. He said obviously we've shown that his character is force sensitive. He laid that out there. Okay, so here's number two. When I went to get the spelling of the characters right for our notes, and I did a search for the Skeleton Crew characters, Jude Law's character, who they meet in the cell, is named Jode Nawood. Last name Nawood. So Jode Nawood. There is another character in this list of person in this list of the cast, Jedi Nina Nawood. So, okay, so he said I'm force that his character's force sensitive. There's another person with the same last name that has Jedi in front of it. But here's the other thing that drives me crazy. It was actually my wife she was like, why does it have to be obviously a faker? We know the force resides in all living things, and some people are force sensitive. That doesn't make him a Jedi, but maybe
right.
he can utilize the force. And the interesting thing is to me is that this person who is force sensitive finds himself in the same cell with a kid who is infatuated with Jedi. So that's the interesting part of this. Um,
Let me back up right quick because you're right, and obviously, I mean, magnets. How do they work? Jeez. Let's start with the obvious, which I don't think has been, I mean, it was clear, it should have been clear. Jadna Wood is Captain Silvo from the opening of the first
right?
episode.
They didn't even
By the
try to
way,
disguise his voice. It was
by
Jude
the way,
Law with a
by with a helmet. By
yeah.
the way, Captain Silvo, Long John Silver, like they're making that comparison for you if you can't get it. Um, so we know that there's a reason why he's there, and it's because he didn't help his pirates make money all throughout. What do pirates want? They want wealth, they want ships, they want freedom. He's got a kid who can A, get him out of that cell, B, has a ship, C, he can dazzle with a little bit of force magic, and D, can lead him to the planet of eternal treasure. You know, why wouldn't he do that? Of course he's going to do that. And, again, leans into the character and into the tropes of a pirate adventure that, think of something like Pirates of the Caribbean and how they're double crossing themselves all the time in that movie
Yeah.
trilogy, movie series, I guess. But that's part of this element is that, yeah, he is going, you exist in the Star Wars galaxy, people have the Force. It isn't a question of, whether you're Yoda or whether you're not. If
The
Han
thing
Solo has the Force,
I will give
just uses it
them
as a pilot.
this. The problem is that the Kenobi series introduced us to somebody who's a faker.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so now we're suspect on everything, but I'm not going to spend 10 minutes on whether or not he was actually using the force. I think Occam's razor says he's force sensitive. He was using, especially now that we see another person with the same last name has Jedi in front of it. It's like, okay, yeah, they probably come from a force sensitive family. Off we're
It was
going.
so obviously him at the beginning of the
The
show.
prologue, right?
Yeah, that's to me is the bigger mystery. Like, why put him in a mask and sort of like make it unclear that it was him,
But not
even
disguise
though
the
we
voice that
all
much.
know that it was him? Um, I feel like there might be a, a reason in that, and again, like maybe there was a reason he wore a mask. Maybe that's why he. Maybe we get into that. Maybe there's a really important piece of story there, but um, yeah, so far, next to nothing about that character, and we'll
Yeah, so
we'll
we're not
find
gonna
out as we go.
yeah, we're not gonna talk much more about him because we got literally like 2 seconds of him. I do want to like we got to get running here because our like I said our alarm's gone off. But there were some neat little references throughout the show. I think the opening sequence, um, an obvious hat tip retelling or whatever of the opening sequence for A New Hope, which I think was a genius way of getting people like us feeling comfortable with this show that is all new stuff, because I was going, this is the whole, opening sequence of the blockade runner getting boarded. I mean, almost sometimes shot for shot, you know, but I was like, okay, this is cool. It made me feel comfortable. So I thought that was kind of neat. The spaceport, we talked about that. It felt like the cantina, So again, I'm feeling comfortable in this new show. So now they can take hopefully some leaps and some steps in the subsequent episodes. I don't know, what other things did you guys notice that was neat little references?
Holiday special
Yes.
television show, which had me guffawing. They didn't need to take it any further than they did. They don't need to explain it. It's just I recognized that imagery and I was losing it. Um, the
Now, I love that our generation, George Lucas hated that thing, and we are not going to let that go. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, happy Life Day, right?
yeah,
The yeah, the cameo from the Ewok critter guy, whatever his name is. That was really fun. Uh, I made the point, like I don't know what your point was going to be with the Urkel, Jaleel White cameo, but I was like, Star Wars is out here rescuing geeky people of color left and right now. Between him and Ahmad Best, it's like, let's give them something cool to do here in Star Wars. You have a home here.
let me tell you what my thing was going to be, and it's not just an Urkel thing. It's actually a Jude Law thing. It's actually a Liam Neeson thing. Um, it's interesting when we Star Wars, that's what we liked about it. Is that basically, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill were pretty much unknown when Star Wars. Yeah, they were in other things, but they were not Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford at that point. And so they were always Han, Luke, and Leia to me. Even so, then when you see Harrison Ford in another movie, it's like, oh, Han's in this. You know, Now when people who we know come into Star Wars, I really can't see them other than it's Steve Urkel, that it's Stefan Urkel in Star Wars. I mean, that's who it is. You know what I mean? Um, and I just think it's Jude Law. You know,
Was Samuel L.
a little. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, I say, and this is not a new thing, right?
that's
Like for
that's my
me,
that's my thing. It's like I think Star Wars is sometimes it's tough to. I'm not saying I hate it, but it's just something that I have to work myself through to go, until I see them then as a character. And I don't even know if Samuel L. Jackson even got. I don't know if Mace Windu is a character to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
it's
Samuel L.
probably still
Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson.
So, but that was the thing. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things that kind of bothers me a little bit. And it just takes me a little bit, and then I'll be fine. But
Yeah, it's one of those interesting aspects of Star Wars becoming so ubiquitous now. Is that again, when 1977, 1980, when Star Wars becomes the thing it becomes, even back then, most of the cast and crew are relative known. So, okay, Harrison Ford had been seen in American Graffiti, which, by the way, I love the little callback in here to this American Graffiti character Bob Falfa. Did you catch that?
mm-mm.
When the girls are talking about how they have to raise, what is it, beyond Falfa? So
Oh,
it's
did
like,
they really?
yep. If you go back and look at the characters, at the kid that they're supposed to be racing that weekend is Beyond Falfa, and Harrison Ford's character's name is Bob Falfa in American Graffiti.
Ah,
So,
that's cool.
but what is his character in American Graffiti? A street racer.
Yeah.
He's got that doing dragster races down Main Street. So again, bring it all back together. But this is one of the dynamics that's different now. Star Wars is influenced several generations of creators. And so whether you're behind the scenes or in front of the camera, there's almost no way you can. I mean, yes, you're going to get young actors and relative unknowns. I mean, people like Daisy Ridley and John Boyega were somewhat known, but maybe not really, but globally. Uh, but at the same time, you're not going to get away with casting nothing but that. You're going to have to get your Samuel L. Jacksons, your Oscar Isaacs,
Mm.
your Jude Laws now. And in a weird way, the advantage is you're getting somebody who's probably dreamt of being in Star Wars. Back then, you didn't have character. You didn't have actors who wanted to be here. I mean, I'm sure Jude Law must have done the force pull trick as a kid, like every one of us did, and now he gets to do it for real. So I'm pretty sure he's stoked out of his mind, just happy that he's going to live that moment. So in some ways, those are the guys who really, really want to be in Star Wars, and that's great.
Well,
Yeah.
we've talked a lot. Okay, so and like I said, we're well past our alarm. Yeah, like I said, my thing was I'm hooked. It's not. I'm looking forward to the next episode, which will be actually not on Monday, but on Tuesday. So, um,
Okay, I'll mention some right quick just because. So John Watts, the creator, directed episode one. David Lowery, which was I don't know if you guys saw The Green Knight with Dev Patel,
hmm,
the movie. You should because Aaron, your wife would love that movie. It's an adaptation of the Arthurian legend of the Green Knight, and it's visually just out there. And he's the guy who directs episode two, which why I feel so great. And if I'm gonna give kudos to the team, is that they've gone and gotten some really great directors lined up for this show. So next you get next episode it's Lowry Still, so it's interesting, and then you get the Daniels, the two guys who made Everything Everywhere All at Once. So wonder how trippy that's going to be. So again, people who grew up with Star Wars want to make Star Wars stuff. Let them. They're going to bring all their creativity into it.
I just wanted to say I'm gonna wait to label it at this point because again we're so early.
yeah.
Um, even to say, well, is it proper Star Wars or not? It's like we're only 2 episodes in, but it has the Star Wars optimism that was just completely missing from the Acolyte, and I already appreciate that about this show. Um, so I'm already happier than I was 2 episodes in on that show, and then where that show ended. I read a review from The Verge that said, in part, the show doesn't have all that much to say about where it fits into the larger Star Wars universe or how it's responding to the franchise's evolution into an unwieldy morass of never ending stories. But if it did, it probably wouldn't be anywhere near as charming. 100% nailed it. I mean, we shouldn't be sitting here worrying about timelines and meta evaluations
Hmm.
and keeping fans happy and just the weight of all of this crap that the fandom has just been carrying around on their shoulders, I think. Let's just have a fun adventure. And that's what we're getting so far. So
Yep.
I'm really happy.
I think that is a good note to end on. So until next week, we will say who dat.
Who dat?
Everybody have a great week.
McClunky.